What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Do You podcast. This shenanigans is hosted by me, Boyder, and this is the graduation series. And the guest today is one of my favorite authors. His name is Jason Zook. He has such a unique perspective on life and entrepreneurship. It's kind of a bucket list conversation for me, so I'm really excited for you to listen in and hopefully gain some value yourself. He's one of those people who's constantly taking action that has me saying, why didn't I think of that? For example, the time he made over $1 million by wearing t-shirts, or the other times when he sold his last name twice. In our conversation, we chop it up about all of that, his breakout entrepreneurial moment, the idea of college, what he would do if he had to decide a career or major right now in his life. We even talk about the time he designed Kanye West's MySpace page. He has such a cool and fun story. I'm excited for you to hear this conversation. And all right, let's get into it. I welcome Jason Zook. All right, welcome Jason Zook. How are we doing today, my man?
We are doing well. I'm excited for this.
Hey.
I'm hopefully gonna bring a little bit of uncomfortable heat to to this interview for people. Make it a little bit uncomfortable, but that's all right.
Hey, we like heat. We like heat. And I first have to thank you on behalf of my future and our listeners' futures for taking the time out today to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. I almost had to rewatch your reel because it was so good before this, but then I was like, no, I'm just gonna be jealous the entire time of how much fun that was.
I mean, you can if you want. But it was so funny. I ran into an old friend the other day, and he was like, man, like, it really looks like you're doing great stuff. I responded by saying, well, did you see the highlights from the Kobe game? He shot 60 shots, but they only showed the ones he made. And
of course.
that's what my highlight reel is doing. So
yeah, no, it's awesome stuff. It's really cool. And I agree with the sentiment. It's totally true. It's especially like with social media, right? It's like, oh man, you look like you're so happy. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to tweet when I'm feeling like shit. Like,
yeah. I'm not going to tweet when I'm like, fighting with someone or the bills aren't paid or something like that.
Yeah, man. No, I get it. It's good perspective, though.
Yeah. No, thank you for watching that. I cracked up at the screenshot that you sent as well.
That's where you had me, man. I was like, oh wow, this is magical. This is majestic.
This dude is insane. Guy.
But like my type of insane. Like I'm like you're hitting the right person.
Do you mind if I brag about you for a split second?
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
And you can tell me if my bragging is accurate or not.
All right.
So you went the traditional quote-unquote secure job route, and then you realized it wasn't for you, correct?
Yes.
And then since then, you've been paid to wear t-shirts, you've sold your last name multiple times, you've even sold your future. You've created apps, web platforms, you're an author, and you've branded yourself as someone who is an action taker and who embraces their inner weirdo.
Yes, that's me.
Is that cool?
You have. You can be my hype man whenever you want.
Hey, man, I have some history as a hype man, so I'd love to get into that. So bring me to the beginning of that. Let's start at your high school experience then.
Yeah, I moved around a lot as a kid, and so I went to 4 different high schools. Previously moved around a bunch before that, and I think that really shaped me. At the time, it was a miserable experience. Going into a cafeteria, holding a tray of food, and not knowing a single person where to sit. What you were supposed to do. That sucks.
For the 4th time.
For the fourth. By the 4th time, I just didn't care. I just literally walked to a table and sat and ate and was like, I don't care. But that really shaped me. I mean, I think that showed me that change is okay. It's uncomfortable, but it can lead to good things. And it led to me meeting some really interesting people at all those different schools that I'm still in touch with a good amount of them. I'm not in touch with a lot of them because I think we drift apart as we get older and you kind of figure out what your values are. But yeah, I was always a tinkerer. So, I tried to think back. I have conversations with people all the time and they're like, oh, do you remember this TV series and, this like throwback movie? Like I've never seen The Goonies and like all these like important movies of like kind of our generation's childhood. And I didn't watch them because I was always on a computer. From the time I would think I was 13 years old, my mom got a Gateway computer. It came in the big cow box. And I spent like all my time tinkering with this thing and being in like AOL chat rooms and building little C++ apps and, all this stuff. And so that's where I spent all my time. And I just got really into being on the computer, building little virtual things. And I wanted to go and get a job as like an animator or something. Like I wanted to go work for Nintendo or do something like that. And my mom said, you can't do that. That doesn't make sense to me. This was 1998. And she was like, this, you can't do this. You got to go get a degree so you have something to fall back on. And then maybe you can chase that dream. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it was probably the only limiting thing my mom ever said to me. Everywhere else she was like, and I grew up single mom, and she was always like, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But like, you got to go to college, you got to get a degree. And she didn't go to college. She didn't have a degree. So I think that's part of it why.
And I think on her behalf, too, when she was growing up, it's
a safe route, right?
It made more sense then.
Yeah.
But things have changed since then.
Yeah, and so I did. I went to college. I skated my way through college. I didn't pay attention, didn't show up. Still got good grades. I graduated.
What college?
Jacksonville University first, and then in my my usual way of transferring schools as much as possible, I went to another college, University of North Florida, also in Jacksonville, Florida. So I finally graduated, was done. I mean, I remember being in like a Flash animation class, and I knew more than the teacher did. And that's not trying to be arrogant. That's like I had just spent years already like learning action script and animating things. And so when the teacher was like, let's start our new file, I almost like killed myself in the class. It was so miserable for me. But so I graduated. I had this degree. I got a job. I found a job through like a job board or something, in the school. And it was working for men's professional tennis, which is the ATP. So anytime you watch any tennis event on TV, the people that are behind that are like running the whole thing, that's the ATP. Kind of like the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, that's the ATP.
Awesome.
And so I thought it was really cool. I didn't know anything about tennis, but I could use my design skills to work in a sport, and I played basketball at the time. So it was nice to kind of be in a sporting environment. But I loathed going to that job every day. There was nothing wrong with it. The people were super nice. The work was really easy. I got to do some cool things, got to travel. But I hated showing up and sitting at my desk and looking at beige walls and a beige desk and a beige computer monitor. Just everything was beige. And I was like,
beige on beige on beige.
Beige on beige on beige. Maybe that's coming back now, but in 2005, that was miserable. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And my entrepreneurial kind of moment was somehow the Seth Godin's Purple Cow book landed on my desk, and I didn't read anything. Like I wasn't an avid reader, and this book someone gave it to me, and I'm like 7 pages into this book, and I'm like, this is it. I'm a purple cow. I shouldn't be here. And the premise of the entire book is like everybody walks around as a black and white cow. We all know black and white cows. Most of us fit into that formula, but there are purple cows. There are people who, unicorns is probably the more appropriate word these days, and I was like, I am a purple cow. And I shut the book, and it was at that moment that I said, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to figure out a way to start my own business. And 6 months later, I quit that job. I started a web design company with a friend of mine. We were 2 people. And interestingly enough, like I know you have a big musical background. One of our biggest clients and one of our first clients was Kanye West. And we did his MySpace page for his 808s and Heartbreaks album.
Yeah.
And so like that sets the time of like when I started to get into like the actual internet and not just building and tinkering with things. And so we had this design company. We were working with some cool clients. It was fun. It was easy. I was working from home. I was doing less design and more kind of marketing and customer service. And then that led to kind of coming up with this idea for I Wear Your Shirt, and then everything the past, almost 10 years.
So that book, the Purple Cow, that was basically your gateway drug. That was and what's interesting is that's why I'm doing this podcast series here. There was something in that book. There was a perspective, an outlook that kind of opened up your mind and was like, wait, there's other ways to do this thing called life, and that's why I appreciate your time so much. You're paying it forward here with this conversation, and I want to note the other thing too about the experience with your teacher.
Yes,
I had an epiphany today when I was listening, or I was going through some of your material, preparing for this podcast, and what I realized was a major flaw in the whole college situation is the fact that you're paying all this money, and then you kind of get to choose who your teacher is. But you get to choose between like 4 people for a certain class, and then the luck has to be on your side that class isn't full. Now, in 2016, with Amazon, with Linda, with people like you can go and choose your own teacher for $25 a month.
Yeah, we live in a time, and that's why I built an online course platform of my own, is that I believe, number one, that everybody has a skill to teach. and that most people who have that skill to teach are more well-versed than people who are credited to teach that skill. Now, that's a generalization, and obviously people like doctors and other people like that go to school for 8 years, like, okay, yeah, they're better off than someone like you or I just being like, you know what, let's just talk about like, you know, I don't know, how to operate on someone's leg tomorrow. Like, and I could just Google some stuff and put something together. But the interesting thing is that you're right. Like, you can get an entire college education on the majority of degrees that a college will charge you tens of thousands of dollars every semester for, and you could do it for a couple $1,000s at most, a couple $100s even. And I do think we live in such an interesting time where college is not the answer for so many people. Now, it is for some people who want the social experience, who have no clue what they want to do, and they just want to go to college. I get that. But go into that with the understanding that you're going to get into a bunch of debt. That debt's going to hang over your head for the next 15 or 20 years, depending on what kind of job you get and how good you are at paying off debt. And is that going to be worth the social experience? Because you can still have a social experience and not be in college. And I would actually argue even a better one if you're smart about it and you know people who you can hang around with. So yeah, I do think there's just this whole shift that we're in right now, and there's a lot of people who are trying to do it. You mentioned them, like Skillshare and Lynda and Amazon, and small things like myself and Teachery, and it's just a really cool time. YouTube, yeah, for sure. I mean,
very free.
I learned so much stuff in my own every single day just by searching things, and I'm sure everybody else is the same. And you could learn your entire career by doing that, whatever career you want to do.
That could actually be a video project. I'm kind of thinking out loud right now. Imagine the video starts off, this dude's saying, "Hey, I'm going to try to get a job by learning strictly off of YouTube."
That would be a super interesting social experiment to see that happen.
Like a Morgan Spurlock kind of living it out type thing. Now, you talked about putting all this money into college. Is there something that before committing to a college major or a profession that you would recommend that would help someone prepare to figure out if it was the right move for them? Is there a way or a strategy that you think someone could employ?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to go back in time right now and to be graduating high school or be close to graduating high school and be looking at college as my next option, I think what I would do is I would say, what is the topic that I am potentially going to go to college for? Even if it's just the broad topic. And let's just say graphic design, because that's what I went to college for, and it's what I chose. And just to start doing that for your own time, in your your own time, and in a way that you can learn it, like a site like Treehouse, which I think is jointreehouse.com. They were a sponsor of my book, so I remember them. They teach you how to do design. They teach you how to do this stuff. And if you actually start doing that and you realize, whoa, I hate this. This is not something I want to be doing. That will save you 4 years of your life, a ton of money. So what I would recommend is to find a couple things that do interest you and just spend small chunks of time, even if it's a week or a month. And while you're in this place of thinking about going to college, start working on the things that you're curious about. And if you're not curious about anything, pick a couple things and just try them, things that stand out to you, things that seem interesting, because you don't want to get locked into this long-term thing that now you feel like, oh, I'm sunk cost bias with this. I've spent so much time and money. I have to do this thing. And I think that's where so many people end up at dead-end 9-to-5 jobs, is because they realize I've spent 4 years of my life, $40,000 in debt or way more. I have to do this thing. It's the only thing I have at my disposal that I can easily do, when that's totally not the answer. And you can circumvent that by just trying some stuff out, before you even got started in college.
I love that. And I'm going to add on that, potentially very cheaply, just go spend some time with someone that has spent 10 years doing that thing.
Yeah.
Find out if they're happy. Find out if their coworkers are happy and enjoying and having a fulfilling life.
Yeah, see if they'll let you look at their bank accounts too.
Yeah.
I know that won't happen, but there's something really interesting about, when you're thinking about getting jobs, like, oh, this job pays X and this job pays Y. Yeah, I mean, it might pay that amount, but it might not mean that you actually make that amount of money, because it costs you, time to do it or whatever, and it's not as profitable as a career as you think.
So, knowing what you know now, if you were to graduate today, all over again, what would your next 3 months look like? And I'm talking graduate college.
Yes. Yeah, so it's actually not too different from graduating high school, in that what I would do, and this is exactly what I would do, because I've thought about this and I've talked about it before in other places. I would do 1 month or 6 month internships, 1, 3, or 6 month internships, whatever I could get that was realistic, at different places where I actually think I might want to work. I would offer to work completely free. And I would just want to go, and I would want to be there, and I would want to soak in that environment and go, is this something I could see myself doing or being interested in for the next couple of years? Because going through the process, again, it becomes sunk cost bias. Applying to a job, getting, all these things, you feel like you can't leave. You feel like you're stuck. But if you go there knowing, I'm actually only going to be here for a little bit of time, let me soak up as much of this as possible and see if I actually like it. I like working with people. I like whatever the situation is. And I would do that in different capacities. So I wouldn't go and work at like 3 advertising agencies, again, graphic design example, but I would go work at like a company that needs a full-time graphic designer that maybe has nothing to do, like the ATP, the place where I work, which is men's professional tennis. That's not a design company. They just need someone to do that work. Then I would go work in an agency, and then maybe I would go work at like a small, kind of mom and pop business in my local town that is profitable enough that they could actually hire a designer, but you don't know what that's going to be like.
So there's a good contrast of experience there.
That experience will do more for you than the 4 years of college will have ever done, and it will quickly show you, okay, where do I want to be? Because if you actually do love the thing that you went to college for and you are appreciative of that skill that you learned and the knowledge that you have, then you have to figure out, where does that fit into the world? Where does that fit into doing work in the world? And a lot of us just think we have to go to the top. We have to go to the biggest potential opportunity in our industry. But that may not be a good fit for you. That may feel really uncomfortable and pressure oriented to you all the time, which can just make you stressed out, can make you unhappy. And those are the things that no one talks to you about in college. Those are the things no one talks to you about even when you're in high school, is that finding a place where you actually fit and feel like the work matters to you that you're doing is more important than the amount of money you're taking home, because money will not equal happiness, and only people who have had that experience can really tell you that.
I want to transition that into a question. Simple question. How do you define success? How do you define success? Because that's sort of, you kind of said it in that answer before, but I want to just have something that people can put a finger on.
Yeah, I used to very much define success by amount of money. And I had 3 goals. I wanted $1 million, I wanted a big house, and I wanted a Ferrari. And I realized, and I had these goals from the day that I left high school and went to college. And I carried these goals with me for 10 years because, number one, I watched MTV Cribs. Number 2, it's what you hear about in society, and then what you immediately think, like, oh, that person's successful because of these things. And what I started to realize as, number one, I started making more money and being able to afford some of these things, or at least have some of these things, is that these aren't actually making me happy. If anything, now I just want the next thing that comes with those things, the next amount of money, the next size house up, the next car. And I realized, number one, these were other people's values. These weren't even my values. These were just things I had heard, and I was like, oh, I think I should probably have these. And so what I started to realize in my life was, what actually makes me happy? Like, what do I really enjoy? And it's not having a lot of money, because that just brings a lot of stress. And there's not a lot of people in this world who have a lot of money and have zero stress. It just doesn't happen. There are a lot of people who have a good amount of money and who have very little stress, and I'm actually starting to figure that out for myself and how to do that in a way that matters. It's taken me 10 years to get to that point with a lot of trial and error. But what I will say is that defining my values has been so big for me, and I really have to give my girlfriend Caroline so much credit in this, that we started talking over the years while I was doing all these entrepreneurial things and trying to make a lot of money. And she was like, what is this all for? What do you really, why are you doing this? What are you doing it for? And I realized that giving up control, meaning having employees, having a lot of expenses, all of this stuff, really limited my happiness. And then also chasing huge financial goals, or like a Ferrari, or all this other stupid, like, tangible physical stuff, it didn't really matter to me, especially when I started to have some of it. Like, I've had a bunch of nice cars, I've had a nice house, and I'm like, it just doesn't, if anything, it's pressure, because I don't want to mess this thing up, I don't want to scratch this thing, I don't want to, my house has an issue, oh, now it's expensive to fix that. There's all these things that go along with it. So, very long-winded answer to say, the way that I define success these days is by doing things that I'm in complete control of. So I'm in complete control of my money. I don't put my money in the stock market. I don't put my money in 401ks. I invest my money in myself, in my businesses, in other people's businesses that I think are interesting. And I have full control over that. No market crash, no trend in some spending or whatever can affect my money, which is awesome, because I'm in full control. The other thing is flexibility. So I will no longer hire employees because I don't like the feeling like I owe time to somebody. I don't like feeling the pressure that I have to be there at all times to make sure this person is doing their job. I like to be able to get up and do whatever I want at any time. Like I could literally at the end of this podcast interview, I could get in my car with my girlfriend. We could drive to Alaska and I could spend the next 6 months there. And it would not, I could absolutely do that today.
Yeah.
And most people don't have the opportunities to do that. And for me, that is success. And I think I'm one of the rare people that you will talk to. And I know this is going to make maybe you uncomfortable and make your listeners uncomfortable, but I feel like I've made it. And my way of making it is not at all what you read about in magazines, papers, online articles. It's not about having so much money in the bank. It's about being really happy, having full control, and having the flexibility to do whatever I want.
I support it fully because you're in a situation where it may not be able to be easy to take a picture and say, hey, I'm on the same level as this billionaire. When those people take pictures, yeah, because they're smiling, yeah, because it looks like, it's all sunny and everything. But yeah, like we talked about this. You only show the highlights, you know, and you only know how happy you are. And what would you say led you to those realizations? With just going through it and kind of attaining it, or having conversations with your girlfriend? Did all of those things sort of come together?
Yeah, before I even answer that, I want to give your listeners and maybe even you a task. And this is something that I do. Tasks. I do this often, is that the next time you see someone in public taking a selfie or taking a group photo with their friends, look at them before they take the photo and look at them after the photo. And it's funny because I heard this put in this perspective for me on another podcast called Get Up On This, and it was awesome to hear it. And what you realize is that they're not super happy before the photo. And then after the photo, all they're all doing is then staring at their phones, not paying attention to each other. But in the moment, the 1 millisecond that they capture, it looks like they're having the best time together. Wow. Everything is so great. Watch for that. The next time you see people taking photos, just pay attention to this. You will, and I've yet to see a bunch of people laughing and having a great time, and then, they take the photo and they go back to laughing and having a great time. It's not at all like that, because that's not the life that we actually live for the majority of people. Just a little side caveat there.
I might make that my new thing, just to post pictures that I'm not happy but claim.
Well, it would also be really interesting to capture on video. It'd be a little shady, but people taking photos of themselves and actually showing, here's what they look like before, here's what they look like at the photo, and then here's what they look like after. Yeah. And this is the real picture. Anyway, soapbox there.
I love it.
But the way that I have come to this is through a lot of experience, is through chasing these big goals that I thought were important, only to realize that these were dead-end streets. And to, instead of that, actually do some thinking and do some actual talking with my girlfriend, who's been super influential in my life for the past 6 years we've been together, and to say, what do I really want? One thing that's been incredibly helpful for me is the idea of minimalism. And I stumbled across this going to a conference. I was a fellow speaker at an event, and I heard this guy give a talk. His name was Joshua Fields Milburn. He runs a website called theminimalists.com. And they actually have a film coming out, which a lot of people might be hearing about the next couple months because it's going to do really well. It's amazing. I've seen it. But this idea of minimalism changed my perspective. And it really showed me that it's not about the amount of things you have. It's not about the amount of money you have. It's the experiences. It's the stuff that you do. It's the people you surround yourself with. And so I've just been very, very intentional about removing people from my life that are negative. And that's friends. That's, even talking to some family members often, because it brings me down and it doesn't make me happy. And it just keeps me in a place of this perpetual cycle of not enjoying my life. And I've done that with, making money. I don't have these huge monetary goals anymore. I don't have, these specific things I need to buy to make myself feel good about myself anymore. And the question that Joshua said at this talk that I continue to stick with me since 2013 is, does this thing bring me value? And so I look at that in so much of my life, and every opportunity of things that I'm buying, people that I'm hanging out with, experiences that land in your lap, in your inbox, and you're like, will this thing bring me value? And, your email to be on this podcast, and I think about that every time I get an email to be on someone's podcast, and I'll look at it, or just the person that it's coming from. And, luckily we talked about this off air, but your demo reel, I was sold. I was like, yeah, this guy's awesome. I love what he's about. We have a lot of similarities and I want to chat with him. But there are a lot of people that send me emails, and I don't want to have anything to do with the message they're putting out in the world.
Man, I appreciate that.
And I think so many people will just take every opportunity, and I was that guy. And so I don't want to sound like I'm preaching from, oh, I've always been right. No, I was the guy that took every opportunity, said yes to everything, wanted growth, wanted, fame and all this other stuff. And I just started to realize, like, that doesn't bring me value.
Well, it's easy to get caught in that because you don't want to hurt feelings. You feel like you want to do what's right, but in the long run, you're right. That question, is this moment bringing me value, will end up compounding over time, and you'll have such a better experience.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so listen, this is fantastic. How about we wind down with the wrap up questions?
All right, let's do it.
All right, are you feeling good right now?
I'm feeling great.
All right, awesome. All right, so if you were given $500 as a graduation gift, how or where would you spend that?
Yeah, this is an interesting question for me, especially now as a minimalist, because I don't need things, and I think the laptop is the most important thing I have in my life. So if I didn't own a laptop and like I just graduated and I got this money, I would buy a laptop because you can do anything and everything on the internet these days. So I would probably I would go and I would buy like the best used laptop in the Apple store, like their online store. They have a bunch of refurbished products.
Yeah.
I would find the best one that I could get for $500, and that's what I would spend it on. I might try and even get something used for less and keep a little bit of cash on hand just in case. But that would be like the thing that I would buy. Mm-hmm. If that wasn't like if I had a laptop or whatever, it would probably be because I'm doing these internships and I need money to live. I would just use that money as my money to live while I'm not getting paid to do anything, because I would want that experience in life to then dictate what I was going to do next.
I love it. Now, what book would you give someone graduating today?
Yes, so I'm actually very passionate about 4 books that I think every college graduate, potential graduate, or even person in college, even people in high school should read. And so I have a post if people want to check it out. It's at jasondoesstuff.com/MBA, like the thing that a lot of people go to school for and then don't end up using. But it's actually 4 books, so I'm going to cheat.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We're going above and beyond.
Yes. The first book is a book called Body of Work, and it is by Pamela Slim. And it is a book that also really helped me frame my things that bring me value, things that I'm passionate about. What do I want to do with my life? What am I interested in? That book really helps you kind of frame that.
Okay.
The second book is Eric Ries's The Lean Startup. And a lot of people may have heard of this book or this methodology of the Lean Startup. Business is not being done the way that you're getting taught it in college for the most part, especially because, quick soapbox, the people that teach business classes and entrepreneurship classes have never run actual businesses. That blows my mind when I think about that. Yeah. And there are some that come and they're like an entrepreneurship, person in residence, and they have experience and they have a company, and that's a rare case.
Yeah, that's but most one of them out are just like 40.
Yeah,
maybe
most
80.
of them are just teachers of this, and they don't even have experience. So the Lean Startup is how business is being done these days, especially on the internet, building things, the smallest version of things, testing them, iterating, listening to customers. Everyone should read this book if you're trying to do business. So that's an important one. So Body of Work, Lean Startup. The third book is a book called Badass Making Users Awesome. And it's actually by a programmer, a female programmer named Kathy Sierra, who has a crazy story that I won't get into, but she was basically like bullied off the internet a couple years ago. But she is so smart. She looks at the world in such an interesting way, and she really reframed for me on how you need to make your customers the kind of pinnacle of what you're building your thing for. Like, how can you solve their problems and make them better people through the thing that you create or the thing that you do? And so that book is really good. So we're at Body of Work, The Lean Startup, Badass Making Users Awesome. And the last book is the book that I've read the most times of any book that I've ever read, which is Rework by the guys that run Basecamp, Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen. And it's a really, really good, kick you in the ass and tell you, this is what you need to be doing. This is how you need to be running your business. Don't do it the way that everyone else is doing it. Mess things up, make, decisions that are going to be wrong and be okay with it, and learn from all of your experiences. So those are my 4 books. I know it's cheating, but I recommend everyone to read those 4.
That's actually the 3rd time that Rework book has came up in the last 3 weeks for me. So I think that's the world calling me. The universe is saying I need to read that.
Definitely.
Well, hey, we're gonna hit it with this one more question. All right. So this is you might bring your minimalism into this answer. All right. Which I also need. maybe off the phone, I want to see how one can start that process, because I am a sufferer of having things.
Yeah. Oh, don't feel bad, my friend. I was a sufferer. I had 60 pairs of shoes at one point in my life. Like, I was a shoe head, and I thought that I needed all those shoes, and I did not. But yeah, just quickly, I mean, we could talk about it off air, but for those listening who are like, oh, I don't want to go read a whole website about, the minimalist. I wrote an article that's like, it's about finding your flavor of minimalism for you. And it's at jasondoesstuff.com/minimalism. And that's like what I do most of the time now, is I write about my experiences and what I've learned. So that's why I'm shilling my articles. But jasondoesstuff.com/minimalism. I think it's a great place if you're just trying to like dip your toes in, okay, what does this mean? How can this apply to me? I don't want to get rid of everything I own. I don't want to just have one chair in a room. It's not about that. It's about reframing your thinking. So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's totally fine. I support that. And your newsletter, I will plug that right now, is fantastic. The do 1,000, I forget what you titled it, the do 1,000 things in the next year.
Yeah, so
that one was powerful.
The 3x333 method, where it'll help you get 1,000 tasks done in a year. That's a fun one.
All right, so if you had the ability to put the message in a fortune cookie that would land on every chair of every graduate before they walk down and they get their diploma, you had the power to write this message, what would it be?
It's too late. No, I'm kidding. No, I thought about this, and I don't usually think about questions that I get sent for these things because I like to be very natural, but I wanted to say something that I actually think would make an impact and something that really matters for me. And that message would be, do things differently. And I just believe that we live in a time now where there's so much opportunity to do things the same as everybody else and try and follow the path of other people and mirror the success of other entrepreneurs or business owners or whatever. Do it differently, because those who do it differently are the ones who actually get notoriety. Those are the ones who are actually successful. It becomes difficult. It's hard. It's not easy. But doing it differently, it brings so many rewards and makes you stand out from so many people in life.
Jason, that was a great closing. Thank you so much for your time on this podcast. Is there anywhere that you want people to go and check you out specifically?
Yeah, just jasondoesstuff.com. I do a lot of stuff. So that was the URL I grabbed a couple years ago and just said, this is my home. I've got that weekly newsletter. People can, if they want to get articles, about minimalism and life and making decisions and kind of ways to kind of take more action in your life is my big thing right now. jasondoesstuff.com is the best place.
And your book, Creativity for Sale?
You can find that on Amazon, and working actually on my next book, which will be out in 2017, so that'll be fun. So
stoked for it, man. In a world where we can choose our own teachers at a very low cost and an affordable amount, you're one of my, I have to say, you're one of my teachers. So along with Will Smith, the Casey Neistats, all these people, man. So I appreciate the work and content you put in your world. Keep dancing and enjoying yourself, jumping up and down on your Instagram photos. Whatever you got to do to put your cheer into the world, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the time.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Yes. Jason, thank you so much for being on that podcast. Guys, thank you for listening all the way through. Hey, listen, if you liked what happened there, if you liked that convo, you got to go check out Jason's site, jasondoesstuff.com, jasondoesstuff.com. Give him a shout. Tell him that I sent you and to say hi, I mean, if you want. And if you want to reach out to me, my email is tomboy2@gmail.com, tomboy2@gmail.com. If you have any thoughts on future guest suggestions or questions you want me to ask in future interviews, I love and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for boogieing, and keep doing you.